We go to Lebanon now, where angry protesters crowded the streets of Beirut for a second day, clashing with police as they demanded the entire government step down after Tuesday's massive explosion. And it seems some listen. Both the Environmental Minister and the Minister of Information have resigned amid investigations. On Sunday, nearly $300 million was raised through a virtual donors conference, but French President Emmanuel Macron and others are warning it can't be a blank cheque. A number of people are still missing and hope is fading for relatives waiting for word on their loved ones. Our Damon has one family story.
Michelle hasn't slept in 3 days. Neither has her sister-in-law, with whom she shares the same name, and a love for Joe, husband and brother. Michelle struggles to form words and sentences in Arabic, never mind in English. Joe is an electrician at the port. And this is the last video she got from him on Tuesday night. Minutes later, the entire building he was filming would explode. Jennifer, Joe and Michelle's oldest child, was in Beirut.
So she heard the explosion and she started crying and shouting, "This is my dad's." هو لأنه كان في لايف على التي في. هذا شغل البابا.
Oh, she knew that's where her dad worked.
Yeah, she's clever.
حرام يا بابا.
حرام يا بيي.
حرام يا أمي.
حرام يا أمي. حرام يا جوي.
The entire family was frantic, calling Joe nonstop.
At midnight, Joe opened his phone for 21 seconds. Her father heard voices, deep voices. That's what he said. And then nothing.
Another call also seemed to have gone through on Wednesday for 43 seconds, but there was silence on the other end. He must be alive, they thought. They had to get to him. Joe is strong, clever. He would have figured out a way to save himself. They combed through videos shot by others from other angles, looking for any clues to give teams locations to search.
You think that's Joe?
No, yes, this is one.
You think one of those people is Joe?
Of course.
No, we are sure. And he was filming from here.
It's the building right in front of the grain silo, a building that is now buried. But they still had hope. There's an operations room deep underground. They heard there are bunkers. 3 bodies were pulled out, but no Joe. Maybe he's deeper in, deeper under, somehow still alive.
Yani we have to keep searching.
Michelle was born in the U.S. The children also have American passports. Joe was just about to get his visa. All that now seems like a different reality.
He loves life in every detail. He wanted to go to America because it's better for his, for Jennifer Joy, for their future, but not for him.
The women are trying to shield the children from their grief. Jennifer doesn't know Daddy is missing. Joy is thankfully too young to fully understand. Maybe they will never have to tell the girls their daddy is dead. That night, the 4th after the explosion, crews were searching around the clock, searching the area where the family believed Joe would be found, clinging to the hope that he would still somehow be alive. At 4 a.m., they sent us a heartbroken message. Joe's body had been found.
Impossibly sad there. We want to head to Beirut where CNN senior international correspondent Awa Damon joins us now. And Awa, it is so heartbreaking for all families missing loved ones at this time. And now angry protesters, they're out on the streets of Beirut demanding answers. What is the latest on that?
Yeah, they are, Rosemary. And, overnight, again, we saw smaller demonstrations than what we'd seen on Saturday. But still, people making it very clear at this stage that they will no longer tolerate this government remaining in power, nor will they tolerate the status quo. This particular attack explosion that took place here, you get in the habit of talking about attacks and strikes when it comes to Beirut, because that is what this population is normally used to. But this particular blast, this is different than anything the country has gone through before. And look, the Lebanese have almost perfected the art of soldiering on, given everything that they've been through in the last few decades, whether it's the civil war or massive explosions that shook the entire capital or running street battles. They know how to pick up the pieces, get through the pain, and try to rebuild the country. But they've reached such a stage, they've been driven to such a stage right now, Rosemary, that they don't know how they're going to do that if this country's political elite continue to remain in power. But of course, creating that kind of fundamental, widespread political change that Lebanon needs, that's not going to happen overnight. But what these protesters' aim is to send that very clear message to the government of they are not going to be backing down. Not this time, not anymore.
It is a powerful message. Awa Damon bringing us the very latest there from Beirut. Many thanks. And we do want to stay in Beirut and bring in Jad Saka, the country director in Lebanon for Save the Children. Thank you so much for being with us. How desperate is the situation on the ground in Beirut in the aftermath of this devastating and deadly explosion? And what is the most pressing need right now?
Hi, thank you for having me. The situation on the ground does remain quite desperate. I think, of course, there's the issue of the missing people, the fact that there are search and rescue efforts that are ongoing. That's really important. But the lack of news, I think, generally is quite problematic. So there's this desperation from that angle. There's, of course, the buildings that remain broken. Around 800,000 homes are the latest numbers we have. So that means 300,000 people, including 100,000 children, are left homeless. Now, of course, we've seen amazing effort from civil society to clean up, to for activists to pick up their brooms, go on the streets, and try to support. But the scenes are still quite problematic. Children continue to be very much affected. We have our teams currently conducting what we call a rapid needs assessment. So try to talk to the children, to the families, to community members to try and understand their needs. And there are rooms they're afraid to go to. Some of them are missing their toys. There's just an overall sense of uncertainty and fear. That's a problem, of course. There's the food, the poverty. Some people have not eaten, based on our interviews, for 3 days. Some because they simply cannot, but some also because they cannot afford it. And that problem is gonna continue and is gonna grow, I think, as time goes by, and we can discuss that in a moment. But I think overall, the sense, I wouldn't call it despair just yet, but just the sense of sadness, of hopelessness, it's quite, the situation does remain quite tense, and people are still very much under shock. You were mentioning people who were on the streets, and again, we can talk about that a bit further. They were on the streets and they were protesting, and some were trying to get their message across in different ways. But if you look at the faces, from what I've been told, a lot of them were blank, because a lot of the people protesting had to protest, had to get their message across. But in many ways, they were still thinking about the houses they needed to rebuild, the children they needed to comfort, and all of the other concerns, all of the relocation, the displacement. Social solidarity has organized in such a magnificent way. So a lot of these homeless people have moved in with relatives outside Beirut, in Mount Lebanon, in the Bekaa, in other areas. But those are not sustainable solutions.
Right. How much do you worry about the mental health of the children who saw this explosion? Some of them have lost loved ones in that explosion. How much do you worry about them going forward?
I mean, I worry enough. This is a very traumatic experience. Even adults, by the way, some of them are unable to hear a door be shut down, and then all of a sudden there's a sense of panic. So for children, it's going to be 10 times worse. They don't understand it. We barely understand it. So they're having a hard time grappling with it. So what we need to do now, us and other INGOs, is first start organizing what we call sessions of psychological first aid. Like really the first layer of trying to talk to these children, trying to get them to overcome the trauma, trying to get them to understand in their own ways, comprehend, accept. And then we will have to take them through a very long process of psychosocial support so that they're able to overcome this on the longer run, but it will be a long process. And then, of course, you have the children who have missed who have lost their parents. You have the unaccompanied or separated children. You have children who have seen, horrendous scenes. So it will take a lot of time. It's not beyond repair, but it will take a lot of time and effort. Yeah.
It is a community pulling together, and you can see that in Beirut and across Lebanon. Jad Sorka, thank you so much for talking with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.